Hey everyone, Rob Gagne here with Nate over at Boveda. We are here for another Unbox Live. Nate, thank you for joining me.
Absolutely. Great to be here.
We're talking everything about seasoning a humidor because season change has happened for us, especially in Minnesota. It's getting cooler out, the furnace is on, the air is starting to dry up, and we need to check out our humidors to make sure they're going to be performing properly through the winter season.
Absolutely.
If you live in a more warm climate, you might be going through the same thing. It might either be drier there. If you live in high elevation, it's probably always dry. Sorry, Denver, Colorado. This is something you go through all the time.
Yeah.
So this might be important to you to just make sure you know how to do this. I do it when the clock changes or when the season changes. That's just what I do.
With the exception of Arizona, works for everybody. You can do it whenever you spring ahead in the spring, fall back in the fall, season your humidor.
Yeah. And new humidors, the density of the cell structure of the wood is a little bit more like there's more available water going in and out. And as the wood starts to age and kind of just get into its, I don't know, what would you call it, equilibrium, it stops changing as much.
Sure.
So I don't know if there's a ton of truth to that, but we have specific tests on how much water is going into these and how much water is going out. And we're going to talk all about the cell structure of the wood because I think it's the most important visual, because I'm a visual learner, to understand what is actually going on when you say season a humidor. And the big myth of the wipe down method, it doesn't work. It does not work, folks. We've tested it. It gives 2 to 3 grams of moisture. If you put the distilled bowl of water in there, then, okay, maybe you have more, but how much moisture did you actually give it? How long should you give it for before it starts to warp the wood and then cause problems? The wipe down method, even if you took it scientifically and said it doesn't work, you're also introducing 100% moisture to the surface of the wood, which is just an opportunity for mold growth. I've done it before. I've ruined my humidors. I mean, I'm sure we've all been there. So in the comments below, if you've been there, if you've done the wipe down method, it didn't work for you, or maybe it did work, great. But for me, it hasn't worked.
Yeah, it doesn't work for me either. And I think it would be kind of similar to staining a piece of wood. You're going to invariably get heavier stain or moisture in one area. You're going to get less in another area. So it's not even, it's not consistent. It's just really difficult because as you're wiping it down, parts are already drying or absorbing a little bit. So you go back over it again and suddenly you've warped a section and not given enough moisture in another section. It's just very hard to be consistent. And so we have a better way to do it.
Yeah, let's go to the cellular structure of the wood. I really want to hammer this in because this is the basis of everything that we're talking about. Let's blow that one up and say, what are we talking about here? We're talking about bound water and free water. And what does that mean? Think of it this way. Bound water, you can't do anything about. It's in the walls of the cells of the wood. The free water is what we're manipulating. The wood has all been kiln dried. It's all dried down. It's got a lot of its bound water is gone. And it's just the free water that we're messing with. That free water is the area that is actually going to be taking moisture during the seasoning process. And if you don't season, the moisture is going to come from your cigars or your maintenance packs. What does that cause? Causes a drop in relative humidity. So when you don't season and you put Boveda inside a humidor, it starts to fill up that free water. And then the cigars start to give off moisture because the cellular structure of the wood is calling for moisture. So they start giving up their moisture. And that's when everyone freaks out because the relative humidity is going below 60% or dang close. And you're starting to freak out that your cigars are going to dry up and shrivel up and be just horrible to smoke. And they are going to be horrible to smoke. So avoid that. Get into the seasoning packs and let's talk about that 2% wipe down method or the 100% Boveda 84% seasoning packs. So that's the key of where we're at. Through our studies, we've seen that if it says like it's a 100-count humidor, it's probably going to take about 90 to 100 grams of moisture to fully fill that free water space. So that, I mean, there's changes in that depending upon thickness and stuff, but let's peanut butter and say, if it's a 100 count, it's going to need about 100 grams of moisture. Now, each one of these 84% packs, go ahead and take some of those out. Each one has enough moisture to give to reach that. So each one has a little over 35 grams of moisture to give. When we have a 100-count humidor, we need to use 4 of these to season a 100-count humidor. You need to use one size 60 for every 25 cigars this humidor will hold. So if it's 100, you just times this by 4.
Yep.
You got 4 packs. Total humidor capacity is the same thing as saying total volume. Because humidor manufacturers don't go by total volume, like cubic inches, we have to give you guys 1 for every 25 cigars that the humidor holds. It's not how many cigars you have in there when you go to maintenance. It's not how many cigars you plan on keeping in there. It's not 1 pack for the humidor. It's not that. And if somebody's telling you that, they're getting you close, but it's not close enough. You really need to make sure that you're feeding it the right amount of moisture. And like I said, take 4 packs times 35. That's well over 100. You're doing perfect time. And why 2 weeks? Well, the 2 weeks is there because technically in the first week, it's taking up the most amount of moisture. But then after that first week is done, there's still some refinement going on. And especially in humidors that leak and are made out of MDF, like our side cut, that's the humidor we cut in half. That's made out of MDF. This humidor is made out of MDF. It has a paper thin.
It's
veneer.
Paper thin.
Paper thin.
Yep.
Veneer of
just along the
Spanish
edge.
cedar.
Yeah.
So really what you're trying to do is actually get some moisture into that MDF so it doesn't suck all the moisture out of your cigars. That's where it's super crucial to understand what type of humidor you have. There's not a ton of information out there, and I hope to get you guys more information on it as we test different humidors, understand the volume. I'm going to try to get you guys a calculator so that you could give me length, width, height, and I could tell you exactly how many Boveda to use. But right now we got to go with 1 per 25. And it's super simple, placing them in there. I like to take trays out, throw a couple in the bottom, put the tray back in, throw a couple in the tray, close the lid, and you're good to go. Do you need to measure relative humidity at this point with a hygrometer?
At this point, I would say my guess would be no.
Yeah, you're correct. Relative humidity is only going to measure the amount of moisture that's in the air. Mm-hmm. We are not putting moisture into the air. We are putting moisture into the cellular structure of the wood.
This box.
So you can't measure that. And that's why when people tell us, well, can I do anything faster than the 2 weeks? Sure you can, but then you're going to risk warping the wood. We've tested everything from 95% all the way down to 32%. We've tested it all. How long will it take? We have given you the 84 because we feel like it achieves it in a relatively quick period without disturbing the integrity and the geometry of the wood. It's just what we found. So could you do it faster? Yes. Do you have more risk? Yes. Yeah. Could you do it slower? You could take your 72% and throw them in there, but it's going to take you 4 to 8 weeks. At that point,
I can imagine people have done all sorts of crazy ways to season their humidors. Fill up your bathtub, open it up, sink it down in there.
I have not seen that one.
I haven't seen it either, but I'm assuming some crazy person has tried this.
No different than the white method.
People do it with expensive jeans.
Sure.
With that denim that hasn't been washed yet. They do all sorts of crazy stuff to try to ensure that they're going to get this cool result.
Right.
And you're like, it's bogus. Like, just skip it.
Dude, cigarclub.com, shout out. Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
They got a cool event going on in their area, I believe in Pittsburgh. I think I saw that through an email. So if you are in the Pittsburgh area, check them out. Go to their website, sign up. It's great. Let me know any questions you guys have out there about seasoning. So does it matter the type of humidor you have? We've kind of peanut buttered this to be the catch-all, 2 weeks. Now, if you have a super high-end humidor, like we had Waxing Moon on when I cut that humidor open, you might be able to say it would take 10 out of the 14 days. But guess what? As soon as we get into a Waxing Moon humidor, instead of humidifying a paper thin piece of Spanish cedar, we're actually humidifying a 1/4 inch piece of Spanish cedar. And that's all the way around. And then he's veneered the inside so that the moisture doesn't escape. You still need to season this for about 2 weeks because the cell structure of this is really, really tightly packed versus like an oak or a different type of wood. So there's no real like, I gotta shave. Like if you're looking for a side, like a shortcut or like a side way of doing this, I just suggest not doing it then, because I don't like to half-ass anything I do. And I feel like the wipe down method is the number one like perpetuated lie out there because nobody's measured it. Everyone's just taken word of mouth and said, oh, this is what I do, Nate. So wipe it down and then put a bowl of water in there and, you know,
throw a sponge on a plate.
Yeah, throw a sponge on a plate. Why would you want to go with all this messy way of doing stuff when it's very scientifically calculated here?
Yes.
And we've measured it and it's done. So I guess I don't have any patience for another way that makes my life more frustrating.
And I guess I don't understand why 2 weeks would be such an extreme amount of time.
Yeah.
I see customers buy boxes upon boxes upon boxes of cigars only to tuck them away into big Tupperwares, big coolers, into Boveda bags.
Grab that. What did we do with our cigars that were in here? We literally put them in a Boveda 1-year humidor bag. And that was it. Just
this one.
Throw them in the humidor bag. If you don't have a humidor bag, throw them in a Ziploc bag. Throw them in a Tupperware container with some 69%.
But they'll sit on those cigars and age them for 2 years without ever smoking them. A cigar that could be totally smokable right now.
Right.
So 2 weeks seems comically short, considering you're going to put those into some kind of container, cooler, Boveda bag, and then you're just going to sit on them for a while. Don't you think you want to invest that to make sure that those cigars you sat on don't get ruined?
Hands down. And for those of you out there who are like, well, why don't I just buy a Tupperware container, throw Boveda in it and be good? That's fine. You could totally do that. But I like the smell of a humidor. I love the smell of the Spanish cedar. Even if it is a veneer, I still get that smell. I still get that. It's part of my smoking experience. I've said this a million times. What questions, if any? So the question is, so do I wipe down and then introduce the seasoning packs? No. That's the whole point of these 84s, is to get rid of the wipe down method because it doesn't do anything. It's a perpetuated lie in the industry that that's what you should do to your humidor, because they didn't have Boveda back then. They didn't have anything that would give a slow amount of moisture over 2 weeks to actually fill, again, go back to that graph, that free water inside the cellular structure of the wood. Everything we do at Boveda is very scientific and very measured. The wipe down method is not. It is a very rudimentary, do this, wipe it down, spit in your hand, turn around, wait for a minute, and then put some cigars in there. So no wipe down method. Great question, Juan. Appreciate it.
There was an interesting question a little ways up there. If you scroll up a little bit, from, I think, Frank Candeloro, 44 there, just right there, that one at 1203. I think this was interesting. Rob, have you ever encountered this? Wipe down should be just for wiping out manufacturer's dust and manufacturing chemicals.
I mean, I would do it with a dry cloth
or a microfiber.
I just tip it upside down. Like I get tobacco bits in my humidor at the end. So when I'm like, okay, I'm just going to take it out, kind of wipe it out with a dry rag, and that's fine by me. as far as I know, there's no chemicals that they're using other than the glue possibly to
Yep.
adhere the joints.
And the veneer.
But
There's
that
probably a
glue
tiny bit.
is wood glue. It's not
Yep.
like car formaldehyde glue. So
Yep.
I don't have any need to wipe down anything because it's just a risk of having more moisture to grow mold and bacteria. I don't do the wipe down method at all. If you
I think
guys
a dry
have,
cloth would be good.
and
If
it
that,
works,
yep.
fine, but I'm not risking it.
Yep.
I'm about to stick hundreds of thousands of dollars of cigars through here as I smoke through them. Why would I ever put that at risk?
Yep.
Just one.
Yep.
I think go back up, Matt. There's some other great questions. The Bull Method by Juan. What do we got here? The Bull Method worked for me, but the next Humidor purchase will be with the Boveda. Yes, absolutely. Does the Bull Method kind of work? Yes, I'm not going to lie. It will work. It's just 100% relative humidity. You have to know timing, and it could warp the wood ultimately. Yep. And then two, what I don't like is the overreaction of humidity. So I don't know how much moisture actually got. Like if you actually want to know how many grams of moisture this wood took, simply take the packs, weigh all of them before you put them in with a regular food scale in grams. Record it, write it on the pack if you want to. Write the date that you started the seasoning, write the amount of grams that each pack is. When you're done with this 2 weeks, take them out, flop them back on the scale, record it. What's the difference? Wow, that humidor took up 16 or 64 grams of moisture, I should say. That's more accurate. 64 grams of moisture.
Cool experiment. Yeah.
Done. Like you're perfect. You do not need a hygrometer inside there to know what the relative humidity is. If we're not measuring that, the relative humidity could get up to above 70% in 24 hours. Mm-hmm. But the wood is still drinking the moisture to fill the cellular structure. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
You're measuring the wrong thing. You just can't do it. It's like, how many gallons of gas did my car take? Well, what's the total capacity? I don't know what the total capacity of it is. So you just keep feeding it gas until the gas pump shuts off. We've already done the math for you. We've already tested them. We know it takes 2 weeks to get this above 70%. What the hygrometer is doing to you is lying to you because as you're pouring the gasoline in there in your car, it's just reading, well, it's 72%. Well, yeah, great. But it's not saying that the cell structure of the wood is fully saturated yet. So it's still drinking. You just got to keep going. You got to do the 2 weeks. I don't know how else to say it any other way. I'm on a soapbox, man. It's 2 weeks. It is what it is. We've done all the testing for you.
Set your calendar notification on your iPhone and walk away with.
Yes. And I think there's a question in here of the coolidors, the wineadors and coolidors that we have behind us. We want to talk about this. We haven't studied a ton on this, but I do want to shed some light on a study that we did do. So do you need to season? Is it in here? Right there.
There's Elliot. Yep.
Elliot says, how do seasoning coolers like the one you have behind you? So this is a great question because typically these coolers, pull up one of those shelves, and the drawer as well. These are typically not veneer. They're typically, again, this 1/4-inch Spanish cedar. So it's the same thing. We are seasoning the wood there that's in there. Now, I haven't done enough testing to find out how much these trays are going to take up, but I have done a little bit of my own testing. So first and foremost, this diagram that I'm showing right now is showing performance inside this. So we're skipping over seasoning right now because I don't have the data for it, but they do need to be seasoned. It's just you don't have to use one Boveda for every 25. You can actually use, what I've done is I've used on the shelves, I've put one size 60, and then inside the drawers, I've put, okay, perfect. One size 60 on every shelf, and inside the drawer, I put two size 60. You could also do a 320, but the reason I don't suggest a 320 is because the 320 does not have as much surface area. There's not as much surface area as a 4-pack. So if you show all those 4-packs, there's way more surface area for this. You just can't, it's not the same. So with that being said, let's get into how these perform. And this matters when you're seasoning. I would suggest to you, if you're going to season with one Boveda size 60 for every shelf and 2 for every drawer, shut the humidor off. And here's why. Let's jump to the graph and show the performance. The performance on the left is when you crank the temperature as high as it will go. Some of these will go up to 72 degrees. Crank it up or unplug it. The graph on the right is unplugged. The one in the bottom that sinks down is when you set the temperature of this humidor to as low as it will go. That's 54 degrees for this one. That thing is leaking moisture fast. And why is that? Well, if you scroll down in that window, Matt, in that study, we have some pictures of what's happening as we go through. This is a thermal plate one, so it doesn't have the condensed air. But on the back there, you're going to see that's the thermal plate, the heat sink plate right there with the fan. And behind the fan, you are seeing like radiator fins. Yep. See the water stains coming down? What ends up happening is the boat is pushing moisture into the headspace. That thing's trying to cool it down. It creates condensation, which is the moisture coming out of your Boveda packs. It runs down, it gets caught in that tube, and then it gets sent out the back. But if we go back to the graph, we can understand that that cooling system is causing the relative humidity to drop almost down to 50% relative humidity.
Yeah.
I'm not keeping my cigars at 50% relative.
I'm not either.
I mean, that is insane.
Yep.
So if you're seasoning, understand that you need to unplug this thing or crank it up as high as it will go. If you don't have any cigars in it, why would you not just unplug it and leave it go? Let it season for the 2 weeks or a week even. I don't care. But these drawers do. You can also take the drawers all out, put them in bags if you want with the 84s. However you want to do it, you can do it. But just understand the temperature thing. These things, I haven't had any success with temperature. I leave them unplugged. Now, if you live in a hot climate, my suggestion is to buy one that kicks up to about 70 or 72 degrees.
Yep.
You're going to have performance like that one in the 60s where you want to be. You're not going to have poor performance when you're trying to kick it down to like refrigerator grade.
Well, you're still keeping your cigars at a consistent temperature. It's just not extra cooling them, because we've seen there from the graph that cooling this unit really does a number negatively on your cigars.
The other thing that's been pretty much a lie perpetuated out there, it's not completely a lie, but when you're using Boveda, it doesn't matter. So the temperature inside here, if you were to unplug it, let's say it got down, what I was showing you is the fan noise actually pushing moisture out through the condensation on the thermal plate. If you were to unplug it and just naturally, like let's say I threw it outside in Minnesota in the middle of winter, it's going to go down to equilibrium of the outside temperature. Let's say it's 40 degrees.
Yep.
That Boveda pack is going to make sure that the relative humidity stays at 69%. The Boveda pack has salt in it. That's the equilibrium. That's the engine that overrides temperature. So as the temperature increases and decreases, the Boveda pack starts adjusting to absorbing or giving off. As we all know, hot air holds more moisture, cold air holds less. But when you're using Boveda, it doesn't matter. Temperature doesn't matter. So other than cigar beetles, these things behind me, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care about temperature.
Yep.
I kick it up as high as I can go, as high as it will go. I unplug it because mine's in my basement and it doesn't fluctuate. Temperature, I don't care. It's a glorified cabinet, and I like the look of it, and I'm willing to pay for that. But I'm not willing, after the testing that I found, to subscribe to the cooling mechanism and the added benefits of this, that, and the other. No, it's actually disadvantages, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, think about it. In the wintertime, cars will automatically kick in the air conditioning when you turn the defrost on, because it will dry out the air. Now, that's a different type of unit than this. It's a condenser. So it is drying the air, but the same principle applies. Is when you start moving that air, you're going to dry that air. You're going to cool it down. You're that moisture has to come from somewhere, and it's predominantly going to come from your cigars.
Yeah. Or the Boveda packs.
Or the Boveda
So they're
packs.
just going to dry up quicker. In that graph, if you click back on that graph, if you keep that thing at 54 degrees, your Boveda packs aren't going to last very long, and your cigars are not going to thank you for doing it. So rule of thumb, crank it up as high as you can get it, or unplug it. Let those Boveda packs do what they do. They're going to create equilibrium. You're going to be in a perfect situation. Now, seasoning again, the wood shelves, it's super important. 1 pack for every shelf, 2 size 60 for every drawer. Let it go for the 2 weeks, take them out, throw them away. Can you reuse seasoning packs? No, there's only a certain amount of moisture to give, and you can't reuse them. So even if they're squishy still, they're supposed to still be squishy. We don't want you to buy these 84% and then to dry up before the 2 weeks is over. We've overdone the pack so that we know it lasts the 2 weeks and gets your humidor up to the right moisture content inside the cell structure of the wood.
Yep.
So I don't know.
Couldn't be simpler.
I gotta go to the questions. What else is out there? So after the seasoning packs and 2 weeks done, do I introduce Boveda packs to humidify the air? Yes, you can introduce the maintenance packs. Now let's talk about that. I have 72%. I like 72% in wood humidors, especially during the winter time. I live in Minnesota, so in the summertime, I switch to 69s.
Yep.
In an airtight container such as this, I use 69 or 65, depending upon how you like to smoke your cigars.
69.
That's what I would do. All wood humidors, in my opinion, can start at 72. They can go up to 75 if they have poor performance. That's why we make a 75% pack. It's not detrimental to your cigars because it's compensating for the lack of construction that this has.
Yep.
Is that a bad thing? No, you just got to know what you're dealing with, and Boveda has a solution for you. They have a pack and a relative humidity level for you to use and have perfect performance in any humidor. So as cheap as the humidors are, you can get performance with Boveda. You just might have to use a higher relative humidity level, or with the 72s, like this 100 count, minimum of 4 size 60, this size in here. If I have poor performance, what I do is I double it. You would think, man, if I double it, am I wasting my money? You do not lose when you overuse. What ends up happening is that the Boveda just comes to equilibrium faster for longer.
Yes.
So instead of changing every 2 to 4 months, you might get 6 to 9 months out of it. Who doesn't want to spend less time maintaining their humidor? You're not going to lose out if you over buy Boveda and put them in your humidor. You could put 1 cigar in here and fill the rest with Boveda, and it would just last a really long time.
Yep.
And your cigar would be kept at equilibrium the entire time, like no change.
Yes.
So it's kind of like horsepower. If you want less EKG marks on your hygrometer, use more Boveda packs. If you want better performance, use more Boveda packs. It's only going to come to equilibrium better because, again, it's like putting a 4-cylinder in this versus an 8-cylinder.
Yep.
Better performance.
Yep. My rule of thumb with my wood humidor at home, I took 60-gram packs and I laid as many as I could in an even layer on the bottom without overlapping. Mine doesn't have a shelf or a drawer. And I could do 6. So I put 6 packs in and they last exponentially longer.
Yeah. It's just, it's amazing when you think of like in any other kind of market, if you overuse a product, it just like expends, you don't get it. If you step on the gas harder, you're just burning up more gas to rev the engine up more. With Boveda, it's just, it's stronger. It's like, I don't know how to equate it. It's just a better machine.
Yep.
Coming to equilibrium faster, longer, less fluctuations. I don't use hygrometers in my humidors. I use Boveda. I can feel the pack. I know if it's getting crispy. I wait for about 50%. And again, I weigh my packs with a food grade scale. I write it on there. I write the date I put it in. I write the grams on there. As soon as I know that it's getting down to about 50% of its weight, I change it out. So I don't let it go rock hard, but I let it get all of the life I can out of it.
Yep.
And if you really want to let it go completely rock hard, just put another pack in. Like you said, you can fit 6.
Yep.
Well, then that means you're going to be on a rotation of like 4 new and 2 old until they get hard, then boom, and then another one in.
Yep.
And another one in. It's just this slow, constant rotation. That's why I like to have a whole 12 pack available to me at any one time. I don't ever like to be without what I want.
Yes.
I'm biased. I work for Boveda, but this is the way I did it when I didn't work for Boveda. This is what I did. I would buy a year's worth. I would have them on hand, and I'm ready to go. And I would buy my 84%, my 4-pack, or if I needed a 12-pack because I got enough humidors to go through a 12-pack or a 20-pack.
Yep.
Then I just buy that, and I'd say, okay, here's my seasoning plan. What other questions do we have out there that we can answer for you? I mean, I'm giving you every single tip and trick I've used. So, okay. So Frank says, you say cigar count, but does Boveda say X square areas needs X amount of humidification? Yes. And I'm working on it. So I've caught a couple manufacturers out there that they have the same exact dimensions, and it can go from 120 count to 200 count. And I think if you're having problems with performance, and this is maybe where I'm going to eat my words. I don't use hygrometers, but if you have a new humidor, you might want to use a hygrometer. If you decide to use a hygrometer, do not trust it until you calibrate it with Boveda's calibration kit.
Yes. The
salt cap thing, again, it's as accurate as the wipe down method. You get too many variables.
Yeah.
You get way off. There's a video out there for calibration kits. Go check it out on our YouTube page. I'm not going to say much more than that, but that might help you. That hygrometer might help you to see if this is performing with, let's say it's at 120 and I got 5 Boveda size 60 in there. And I'm going, man, Nate, my humidor is not performing. It's low 60s.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. You might tell me, throw some more Boveda packs in there. Because it, again, might be that it's a little false. They're telling you something that's not quite accurate. You know, I don't know why we've synced up with this idea of like total cigars has been the way that they've all communicated.
Sure.
I think it's always interesting. It says 100 count, and guys are like, it only fits 75.
Yeah.
So we're doing our best, but I am truly working hard on getting you guys a calculator that says length with height, here's exactly how many Boveda packs you need, because I know how many square inches each one of these can do. Still working on it. So
it's
check
coming
back soon.
Yes.
But you are absolutely correct. Go by total capacity. And if you're not having performance, increase the amount of Boveda packs you are using first. Haas says, a bunch of the humidors I have shopped for include the one I bought has a capacity range. Mine is 50 to 100. Which end should I scale to for seasoning? 100.
100. Yep.
Always go to the high end.
Yep.
Because again, they're giving you a range because certain cigars are different shapes. But ultimately they're saying, and typically that 100 range is going off of a Toro size or something around that. So that's why we want to go with basically total capacity of the high end. That's where you're going to get your best performance with Boveda. And again, I'm working on a calculator so that you guys have exact dimensions, you know exactly how many Boveda to use. There's going to be no question. It's just flawless.
Yep.
We owe that to you to get you that. We owe you the opportunity to not be bamboozled by marketing, total capacity of a humidor, inaccuracy, bad performance. We want everyone to have success with their humidor. Storing cigars should be the simplest thing you do with Boveda. It should be easy. You store with Boveda, you season with Boveda. You have no problems other than choosing which cigar should I smoke today and why. Because if you're dealing with anything other than that, hit us up at info@bovedainc.com. We would love to help you. We have a great customer service team that is willing and able to solve any problem. That's what they're trained to do. Linda heads up that team and she's amazing. So let us help you. We have solutions. It just might be something that you are so close and just need a little extra.
So seeing some comments about coolers, kind of which this essentially is, being used as humidors. I get this question a lot from consumers. Do you have to season a cooler?
No. And even if I store cigars in wood boxes, right?
Mhm.
So I buy cigars and I'm fine with keeping the cigars in there. If you're not smoking out of that cooler every day, I smoke out of my humidors. I don't smoke out of my coolers. I move my inventory from my coolers to my humidors. I don't care about seasoning anything in there. I just care about using, if you have a Coolador or a Coleman cooler or what, whatever brand.
A Yeti, if you will.
Yeah. I use the 320. And this is the other thing that we need to provide you is a scale of one of these for every cubic foot. So 320 for every cubic foot, or 4 of the size 60. So typically coolers, again, we're going to get to the point where it's length with height, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to plug that in as your cooler dimensions, and then I'm going to tell you, because it's going to be different than a wood humidor. Wood humidors breathe moisture.
Yes.
They breathe more moisture than this Coolador. These breathe more moisture than obviously a plastic container. So you can use less Boveda and still get away with the 2 to 4 months of performance, or almost 6 months, if you want to say that. I'm going to get you that. But right now it's for every cubic foot, because they do typically quarts, or these will say this is a 1.4 cubic foot. I just round up. I use either one of these and a few size 60, or I use 2 of these and just let it fly.
Yep.
I just round up.
Yep.
So in the cooler situation, if it says it's a 60 quart, just type it into Google, quarts converted into cubic feet, and you're done. There's a calculator for it. You don't have to do any crazy math. It spits it out for you. And then okay, great. I'm using one size 320 for every cubic foot, or I'm buying a 4-pack or 4 to do a cubic foot in the size 60. Now, I also, in Cooladors, try to slide a size 60 or even an 8 gram in the box. And then I put, these to control the headspace.
Yeah. Sure. That's a great idea.
Not all boxes can fit a size 60.
Sure.
So sometimes I have this cracked open box. And
all his boxes are stacked like a bunch of like an accordion.
It messes with the stacking. Yes. So I have to turn it. And sometimes I have to have somebody build little shelves, or I'll use Tupperware containers. I'll flip them over.
Sure.
To create little shelf sections. I don't know. Do what you can. Or you flip it so it's like a book.
Yes.
I don't stack them necessarily the way a box should lay. I flip it so it's like a book.
Yep.
Do whatever you can. I hope that helps with coolers. What other questions do we have?
Leroy Smith says, doesn't a cooler take away from that smell you get when opening a wood humidor?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And that's why I don't smoke on a cooler. I smoke on a humidor. I just store all my extra cigars in coolers and Tupperware totes and all that stuff, because I got over 1,000 cigars at home and I just can't. There's no way to keep all of those. And I don't, some people subscribe to the cabinet. I don't particularly like the cabinet humidor. Mm-hmm. It's not my thing. I don't have space for it at my house.
It's harder to control and be consistent in some of those cabinets.
Some people got it nailed down, but I agree with you on that.
I think it's more, everyone likes some maintenance. Some people like less. There's a range for everybody.
I like less.
I do too.
I go with less always. Any other questions?
I'm saving my time for the actual cigar.
Yes. Coolers are for extra storage, in my opinion. They're not what I smoke out of, but they're great. And they're cumbersome to try to find the cigar you want, because you're like, crap, where did I put that box of Padrones? Is it in cooler A or B or C, or where is it? Shoot.
You literally have like a file system, like the card catalogs at a
Rolodex.
library.
Yeah.
It's a Rolodex. What do I have in cooler 3?
I've even put paper on the top.
Oh, sure.
And written what's in there. Yeah.
Sure.
That works too. Any other?
Our
good
iPhones
questions?
have tons of options for
iPhones do. If you just
for
put
storing that information.
an A on the cooler,
Uh-huh.
in cooler A, I have a box of Padrones. I have a box of La Flor Dominicana. I have a box of Rocky Patels. Like whatever it is, you can start cataloging it. Would it be cool if there was an app for that? Absolutely, but there's not. So just make your own.
Yep.
In notes. Where can I find a quality wood humidor online? There are great options. I mean, as far as quality goes, what you're going to want to look for is a manufacturer that's going to tell you if this is solid wood or not. And I think that's the biggest challenge. So Leroy, to your question, I can't particularly say. I mean, there's a bunch of companies out there that sell humidors. What I'd be looking for is, are they telling me that it's veneer or quarter inch Spanish cedar with a hardwood on the outside? Go back and look at our video that we had.
Yeah.
With Waxing Moon. Waxing Moon humidors came up. They talked to us all about humidors. As far as shopping, there's tons of humidor sites out there, and I apologize. I haven't had good luck with understanding quality of their humidors. So it might be a phone call to them. It might be you needing to email them if they can even tell you. So I apologize that we don't, but I would tell you this: price matters. You're not going to get super quality unless you get above the $300-400 mark.
Yes.
And picking an online customer that's going to tell you and respond to your questions or give you the answers in the description so you know what you're buying. The way they hide that is right here on the top. It looks like it's Spanish cedar, but it's not. This is a veneer top. And they're doing that because they want you to think that the full wood is all Spanish cedar, but it's not. It's no different than the one I cut open where...
This is solid cedar.
Yeah, the one I cut open is just MDF. And this is MDF. You can't really tell with the video camera, but they have a channel here for this rail, and there's a space, and I can see the MDF. So you're just going to have to take my word for it that this top veneer is lying to you in the sense of that it's not solid wood, but it's also not a horrible humidor. You just have to know what Boveda products to use to make this successful. And that might be 472s, it might be 872s, or it might be just 475s. If you jump up to that next RH level, it all is going to dictate. The variables come down to how much, what am I trying to say, Nate? How much demand is placed on the humidor? I mean, if you put this inside a 30% relative humidity environment, like most homes, 30 to 40%, that's where we based a lot of our testing on. We test in real world conditions as much as possible. And then we test extremes in drying chambers of 10% relative humidity or less. And then we test in super humid areas. So what we found is the typical 30 to 40 up to 50% relative humidity. You're going to get 2 to 4 months out of the Boveda packs. If you use one size 60 for every 25 total cigars the humidor will hold. If it starts to deteriorate from there, hit us up at info@bovedainc.com. Double the amount of Boveda you're using in the current RH that you like. If that doesn't work, we might have to bump up to a higher relative humidity level, but that will always solve every problem. Low RH is easy to solve. You just have to know what to look for.
Yes.
Having a calibrated hygrometer is key. Using the right amount of Boveda is key. Seasoning with Boveda 84s is key. I cannot stress that enough. Those are the top 3. Calibrated hygrometer, right amount of Boveda, and seasoning with 84% Boveda will get you through even the worst humidors. Guaranteed. So, what else do we have? Trevor says, would you recommend putting cedar in Boveda bags and leaving it 2 weeks before introducing your cigars? No, I mean, I think cedar can go inside like a bag like that. Those real thin cedar like paper strips, you know, like it's It's no different than the veneer on here. It doesn't take up a ton of moisture at all.
No.
I mean, you're taking up moisture when you get to a 1/4 inch.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you start taking up moisture. So I don't season those. They typically come in a box of cigars, and I'll throw them in a humidor bag that we have our cigars in, and you kind of get the cedar smell, but it's not.
It does dissipate pretty quickly.
Yeah,
the smell.
It's not the greatest. I mean, technically, you'd be better off buying 1/4 inch cedar, Spanish cedar, sanding it to get a brand new, fresh.
Yes.
Kind of. What's in there is oils. That's what that smell is from. And I'm not a big fan of a ton of that oily cedar smell getting into my cigars. I think the natural way to do this is to just let the Spanish cedar be there for a slight effect.
Sure.
Not a overpowering cedar effect. But if you're into that, you can do that.
Yep.
That's up to you. Anything else? Any other questions we have? Thank you so much for watching this video. Like, subscribe. We have every other Friday, we're doing this live. And every other Friday, we're dropping a box press. So next Friday, we drop a box press of Michael Hertlock's and his brand new brand, Ferriotego. It is going to be amazing. I sat down with him at PCA. He's a huge wealth of knowledge, icon in the industry. It kind of gives me goosebumps to talk about him because he's just so prominent. And it was a great discussion. It was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you haven't checked it out, Cigar Smoking World Championships, we did a 10-minute video. We just dropped it last week. Check it out. See if you can.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I had a blast shooting that video. See if you want to compete. In 2022, you'll be able to go to cswcnews.com and you'll be able to find all the locations that are going to be hosting competitions. See if you have what it takes to slow smoke a cigar for more than 2 hours. Again, thank you all for the comments, all the viewership. I appreciate you all. Have a blessed weekend. Nate, thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely, Rob. Always a pleasure. Have a great weekend, everyone.